Alright, hello everyone. Today we have another card. I'm actually doing a birthday card for a friend of my husband's today. I'm using this card sketch. It's just a simple one. I did it while I was watching TV, so I didn't have my card sketchbook right there with me. This base is going to be from Basil. It's called Blackbird. I'm just scoring it. It's going to be a top fold card, so I'm scoring it at 5.5 on the 11-inch side, and then I'm folding it, so it's going to be 4.25 by 5.5 inches with the fold at the top. This Martha Stewart scoring board is very, very helpful, and they have a little one. I haven't used it yet, but they do have a little one. And somehow, I don't know if it was when I cut the paper or somehow I got off a little bit, so I'm just trimming off the edge here so it's perfectly even, all the corners. I always like to do that just to kind of clean up a card. Even on the pre-folded cards, sometimes they're not quite cut straight or folded straight. So you can see there. I'm using a couple different pattern pieces. This grid piece is cut to 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. It's just a slight, it's like a 1/16 inch smaller than the base on all sides. And it's from My Mind's Eye, Miss Caroline, Dilly Dally Adventures Fair Paper. And I've got 2 pieces of just white cardstock here. And these other pattern pieces, or this, this little sentiment is actually a flashcard from the 6x6 Simple Stories Happy Day pad. And I cut it from this little piece here. And it just says, Happy Birthday. Or Happy Birthday. And I have a yellow piece of cardstock, and I just cut it to be slightly larger on all sides. So I'm just going to glue this down. Just kind of matting it on this yellow piece of cardstock. I'll set that aside. Next, I'm actually going to create the pattern around it. So I'm going to trace this square piece or a rectangle piece because I don't need to have the other pattern paper under it. And in my card sketch, I actually had brads on it, on the rays closest to the sentiment, but I decided not to do that with this card. And I actually decided to just create 3 rays instead of, I think I had 6 on the original one. It was definitely more than 3, but I just decided to do 3. I'm just going to cut these pieces apart. Obviously, I already have the rectangular piece, so I don't need that one, but I do need the rays, so I can trace them on the other pattern paper. It doesn't have to be exact, but I was trying to get as close as possible when I was tracing, as well as cutting out the pattern pieces. You want to make sure it's at least close enough that whenever you piece them together, you don't have gaps in your pattern. So sometimes it's even easier to cut them slightly larger, that way they overlap, but you don't want them hanging off the edges either. Okay, the pattern paper I have here, this aqua is from My Mind's Eye Dilly Dally Adventures record player, and on the other side has this ledger paper, and then this one is the token paper, and on the opposite side is ruled paper. And I'm actually going to use both of these 2 sides, but this is from My Mind's Eye Miss Caroline Dilly Dally Celebrate token paper. Pretty much using this collection for this card. I bought the entire collection in a paper pack, and I think it's fantastic for masculine cards just because it has more patterns than just stripes or solids. But they're definitely a little bit on the more neutral side. I'm just tracing here. And I know you can trace on the back side, but instead of getting complicated with which side was up or down, I just decided to trace on the front, and then I'll erase any pencil lines I have. And on the token paper, it really didn't matter where the piece was placed, but on the back side, on the ruled paper, you'll see I kind of line it up at a different spot just to have a different pattern. So I'm going to piece it over here. I'm just trying to see how it looks. Just kind of lining that one up, and I didn't want it exactly next to it. I'm speeding up here so you can see it without it being so incredibly long. These two papers together looked a little bland, so I wanted to use the aqua in between these two patterns. That way it has a little bit more of a contrast. And this paper, again, the aqua, it doesn't matter where I place the pattern. The scissors I use are Cutterbee, I believe. Sorry, my camera went out of focus there for a moment. The lighting on this video, for some reason, is a little weird. So I'm actually overlapping the aqua piece a little bit on top of the token paper to make up for any gaps. I'm going to use this other piece of white cardstock as my matting piece, so you can see I'm going to put, actually I'm sorry, I'm going to overlap the token paper on top of the aqua. So I'm putting it down first. It's going to be the base one, and then the other two will be slightly overlapping on top of them, on top of it. That way it'll cover any gaps. Just erasing those pencil lines. Right, and then the final piece to our little pattern here will be right here. And if you have patterns that aren't quite so distinct, you can also do create a border, like a faux stitching line with a gel pen or something going around each piece. And that would actually look fine as well. I've never done that, but I may do that next just to see. But these patterns are very distinctive, and there was really no need to separate them any more than I already did. I had a slight gap there, so I was trying to overlap it a little bit more. And then the final piece is this little flash card. I'm actually going to put it on dimensional adhesives. The other pieces are flat down on this card. And just because I had that slight gap, I'm going to trim off a piece of the edge piece of this white cardstock. I just don't want any extra white cardstock sticking out from under the little flash card. I don't know why I felt the need to put so many dimensional adhesives on here, but whatever, it works. Guess I don't have to worry about it moving around. It's definitely staying. I'm just lining up in that corner, so it'll have a little bit more height to it than the rest of the pattern piece. And I always just kind of barely put it down just to test the spacing, and then I push it down completely. Just want to make sure everything looks okay. Alright, now we have this grid piece. I'm going to mat this right on there so you can still see the grid pattern around it. And then I'll put that on top of the Bazzill Basics Blackbird piece. Just pasting this right down. Just lining up as best I can to have an even border all the way around. You can do this with anything. I actually was going to do a circular, like use a punch, a circle punch to punch out the corner and then stamp the sentiment, but then when I saw this flashcard, I thought it was perfect. And the yellow gives it just a little bit more color to tie in the flashcard with the other patterns in the paper. And actually on the back of that grid pattern is a really cool pattern piece of paper. It's a whole bunch of little tickets. Alright, so I'm just matting this. I'm just putting this right down on top of the card base, and that's pretty much the end of our card. I'll add some more pictures at the end. Thank you for watching. Enjoy!